Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed your morning tea there. And on behalf of Reckitt Benckiser, we do welcome you to our next plenary session at APP 2014. And it's titled, Sustainable Profitability for Pharmacy? Yes, we can. And we do begin as ever with a request for you all, if you could turn your mobile phones to off or silent as a courtesy to our speakers and other delegates. Just before I further introduce proceedings, we have had some glasses that have been handed in that were left behind at one of the seats from the previous session. So if they are yours, we will just have them up here on the panel desk to collect when the session concludes at 12:15. Ladies and gentlemen, to help kick off proceedings, it's my pleasure to introduce Vanessa McCutcheon, Marketing Manager for Healthcare Professionals of Reckitt Benckiser, to say a few words on their behalf. Please join me in welcoming Vanessa.
Hello everyone. It's lovely to be here. This is my second APP and as usual there's a lot happening. Today I just wanted to say a few words about what RB means to pharmacy and what pharmacy means to RB. And last year we actually made a commitment to pharmacy to embark on a journey of development, and that's business development, clinical development, professional development. And over the year we developed a lot of programs, put a number of things in place to build on that commitment. This year we're following through on a number of business commitments and professional development that I think you'll find very interesting as the year goes on. But to look back just briefly, we embarked upon this journey with a number of high-profile and extremely enthusiastic pharmacists to unlock the potential of a category that I believe personally is probably one of the biggest opportunities pharmacy has to differentiate itself through service and professional care, and that's the S3 category, or the pharmacist-only category. And today I feel very proud to be able to share with you and see your reaction to the response we've had from those pharmacies and the difference it's made through taking some positive action and sustaining profitability. And I think the title says it all, and we hope that at the end of this presentation you will feel the same and potentially make some changes within your pharmacy to capitalise on the pharmacist-only category. So thank you, and I'll hand back to Judith, who will introduce the speakers.
Thank you, Vanessa. Our first speaker today is Glenn Guilfoyle, Principal of The Next Level, Australia's leading purveyor of sales team optimisation for business-to-business in corporate Australia. Glenn brings a unique blend of skills, experience and insights to the challenges facing retail pharmacy from many years of experience in sales and marketing management. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Glenn Guilfoyle.
The Qantas debate takes a new turn, with the opposition raising safety concerns.
This is a most irresponsible suggestion, a most reckless and irresponsible suggestion.
Also ahead, misusing Medicare, how patients are rorting the system and pocketing taxpayers' money. Sanctions versus diplomacy, European leaders to hold emergency talks on the crisis in Crimea. And later on the business, the world's biggest drilling services company losing cash and hitting red ink. Live across the street.
And in breaking news, new research for the first time made available in Australia that addresses the question, can we sustain profitability in retail pharmacy Australia, in spite of the spectre of PBS reform? We're going to go to that breaking story first on this bulletin. Data collected over some 70 retail pharmacy sites across Australia over the past 2 years by on-site observational examination of dispensary workflows and customer engagement has revealed some stunning new statistics and benchmarks. Visit retention rate, 52%. What this means is that on average in Australia, when a customer walks into a retail pharmacy, 52% of the time they will stay for the duration of their dispense. That means 48%, almost half of the time, the customer, by their own volition or by the encouragement of the dispensary team, elects to go and do the shopping, the dry cleaning, whatever, and come back later. The data also shows this, that whether the customer stays or goes and returns, the average time they spend on site is 5 minutes and 11 seconds. Now, what's really interesting about that number is when we start to drill down. And the data shows us that 2 minutes and 28 seconds of that 5 minutes 11, the customer is actually engaged with the dispensary team member. That means less than half of that 5 minutes and 11 seconds is spent in engagement. The average processing time of the script, this is a single script item, is 3 minutes and 52 seconds. So there's more time spent processing a single script item than engaging the customer. And when we start to peel back the layers further and further and drill down into the data, we find that of that 2 minutes and 28 seconds of engagement time, actually 39 seconds on average is spent by the dispensary team member proactively adding health or medicines advisory. 39 seconds. Flipping to the other side of my ledger again, of the 3 minutes and 52 seconds of processing time for a single script item, 1 minute and 33 seconds is what we call white space. Now, white space is that time when the script is not being handled. It's either sitting in a basket, sitting on the bench, sitting waiting for something to happen to it. So considerably more time is spent in white space than in proactive counsel. Drilling further down, again from the customer's experience point of view, when the customer comes into an average Australian retail pharmacy, who do they see? 54% of the time they will see the pharmacist fronting up at the script counter, which compares to only marginally more than the 51% that the customer sees the pharmacist buried away, feverishly working way through processing the scripts. Now, how do I know all this? I happen to be the lucky guy who heads up a small group called The Next Level, who has been into these 70 pharmacies over the last 2 years and stood there and watched and recorded what goes on from the customer's perspective. Now, let me stay right up front. I'm not a pharmacist. I've never been trained in retail pharmacy. I've never dispensed a script in my life. In fact, at The Next Level, we work in all sorts of different industries, and we do this sort of measuring and benchmarking of workflow effectiveness and efficiency in a range of different settings. In retail pharmacy, we do that against a particular framework of what we measure, how and why. And I'd like to share that framework with you in terms of a proposition for you to think about. And this proposition starts with the notion of one visit, one dispense. It is the notion that the customer doesn't have to go away and fill in time and come back later to collect the script. You think about that 5 minutes and 11 seconds I shared with you earlier. Every time a customer comes into a chosen retail pharmacy, this is a gift. This is a privilege of 5 minutes and 11 seconds of their time. The question that then behoves you as a dispensary team is how you honour that privilege, what you do with it. And so when we score and provide these sorts of reports, we are measuring and recording the degree to which the customer is engaged effectively and the script is processed efficiently. So what do we mean by engagement and effective engagement of the customer? We're talking in terms of maximising proactive counsel, whether that be medicines counsel for the medicine being dispensed right here and right now, or proactive health and well-being counsel on a broader stage in regards to that customer. We're talking about capitalising on responsive counsel. So this is responsive in the sense that the customer is asking for counsel, which differs from proactive counsel where the dispensary team member is offering it or initiating it. Optimising queuing and minimising waiting. Now, you folk know better than me, that is a difficult juggling act to play. But it is the absolute essence of effective customer engagement. What do we mean when we talk about processing the script efficiently? We mean handling it once, minimising the time taking, and eliminating this white space. And in terms of who, the proposition puts it to us that the maximising of proactive counsel should, as often as possible, be done by the pharmacist of the dispensary team member. And when it comes to the traditional separation of the script for processing, the pharmacist should be the one doing it least often as possible. And this proposition culminates with a hypothesis that goes something like this. If there is a compelling argument and case for your customers to stay in the store whilst you're processing the script, and you honour the behaviours in the upper stream and the lower stream, then the hypothesis is you'll be rewarded by increased sales, principally from your health categories, increased customer retention, and decreased operational costs to man and run your dispensary. Now again, I'm not a pharmacist. Who am I to stand before you and put to you a proposition and a hypothesis like this? Well, I'm not. Well, not personally anyway. I'm just the mouthpiece of the data. So let's go back into the data again from this Australian typical average cohort and see what it says to us about this proposition and hypothesis. When we prosecute the data and look for the causal relationships between those stores that have a high ratio on one visit, one dispense and engagement duration, what the data shows us is that there is a moderately strong correlation that reaches statistical significance. What it also shows us is those stores that have a high one visit to one dispense ratio and short processing duration, there is even stronger connection here. The correlation is statistically strong, and that reaches statistical significance. Delving further, engagement duration and duration of proactive counsel. The relationship between those two behaviours is strong and reaches statistical significance. And the relationship between short processing duration and those stores that handle once and have eliminated or at least reduced white space has a very strong correlation that reaches statistical significance. And further, we find from the data that the relationship between high proactive counsel duration and the pharmacist being the team member who is executing that activity has a strong correlation with statistical significance. So again, I think the data speaks, and this is again a fairly representative sample of Australian retail pharmacy. Do the correlations go all the way through to the pointy end, and particularly in regards to increased revenue from the health categories? Well, that's a watch this space. As we tip more and more stores into the pool and start to iron out some of the inconsistencies we've seen with some of the point of sale data coming back to us, we'll expect to see the relatively weak correlations at the moment strengthen up. So that's a work in progress. But let me linger and finish with this thought before I hand over to Nick. If your pharmacy is like one of these average or typical pharmacies in this cohort, then you will be doing something like around about 200,000 customer transactions per annum. The data tells us that for every one of those customer transactions, if you look like a typical store, you will be generating about $15.43 in sales from the health categories, the sorts of categories that Vanessa was talking about, the health and companions categories. When we rank the highest dollar of health sales per customer transaction stores, biggest Goliath all the way to the little rats and mice, we find that the start of the upper quintile, so the top 20 stores, top 20% stores, are doing $22.49. So let's talk in round numbers and before my pen completely gives way. So there's a $7 difference. Third time lucky. $7 difference to move from average to move to the start or the bottom of the top 20% performers. Again, this is a ratio, dollars per customer transaction. So let's talk in terms of round margins. Let's say that's $3.50 in margin times 200,000 customer transactions. There's 700,000 margin opportunity. And when I listened to some of the presentations yesterday and the figures bandied about in terms of what's going to be lost by PBS reform and price disclosure, the numbers I saw yesterday are swamped by a number like that, completely swamped. But that's easy for me to say and easy for me to write up. And you may well be thinking, that's a 50% increase. But let me go back to my 39 seconds again. 39 seconds is spent currently on proactive health and medicines counsel. So let's say you increase that by 50% as well. So what are we now talking? We're now talking basically a minute, an extra 20 seconds. 20 seconds, that's one question that invites an open answer and an opportunity to foster a health solution sale. So I think I finish where I started. Do you think you can do it? I think you can. And I'm going to hand over to Nick.
"20 seconds, holy cow, is that all it takes?" Thank you very much, Glenn. My learning objectives today are pretty straightforward. Quite a few of you have heard about the Pain Smart Challenge, which we've been running for a year. I'm going to quickly jog through what the Pain Smart Challenge is, and at the end there will be the results. So I want you to understand basically what it was a program to encourage pharmacies to embrace and respect and love and hug their S3 department and get more profit out of it, basically. And manufacturers had this perception that it was some kind of horrible graveyard between S4 and S2, and it should never be seen like that because there's really big opportunities there. Now, this is John Chen, who is one of our pharmacists, trial pharmacists.
So the program helped with the business, but also helped the customer, as well as helping us as professional pharmacists.
All right, the evolution of the Pain Smart Challenge. Vanessa came to me a long time ago, about a year and a half ago, and said, I want you to do a presentation about the S3 department. And the focus for it, we were tossing around names for it, and she said, I want it to be called S3 is better for the customer, better for the business, and better for you. And the more thought that I put into developing some kind of presentation about it, it became very apparent. And this was the three-pronged benefits of the S3 department that we used to sell it to the staff during the program. So number one, it was there's products in the S3 department that are clinically more effective and better for the customer, and that gives them better health outcomes. S3, as a general rule, all the pharmacies I spoke to had a really good margin in their S3 departments, in the department and across all categories, and so it was a good business, a commercial business proposition, and also the pharmacists who were actually embracing it found it really, really professionally satisfying. So for me at that point of time, it was a win-win situation for everyone. The objectives of the Pain Smart Challenge was to develop a program to embrace the S3 department, and also it had to be a profitable thing. It wasn't an ideological notion. It was something we could present at APP where people say, I will do that because it feels good, but it benefits the business. The aim was to prove that supporting S3 brands can make a difference to customer loyalty and profitability. I'll go back to this later. We developed a really holistic business plan that included ordering, pricing, marketing, ranging, workflow, training, the culture of your pharmacy, all those types of things, because we wanted it to be a holistic thing. This wasn't just moments of clinical brilliance. Actually, there was no clinical brilliance from me. Hate to admit it. But, and we did a one-year real-time case study with the results coming up in about 8 slides. First of all, we developed an assessment tool, and in that tool we got people to, this is available on rbhealthhub.com.au. If you're going to write or type anything during this presentation, make it rbhealthhub.com.au, because the assessment tool is available for you to print off and try and have a look at in your pharmacy. We did ranging, pricing, and it wasn't just pricing downwards, it was sometimes pricing upwards to reflect the professional moment that you were putting into the sale. Recommendation and counselling process, measuring customer loyalty as a result, and repeat business and goal setting. So we actually measured the quantitatively the dynamics, how much effect it had. One of the big things was the culture of the pharmacy, was that were pharmacists, an example from the assessment tool, were pharmacists receptive to front of shop staff referring people to them for potential S3 sales, or were they groaning and rolling their eyes as they moped out of the dispensary? I know there's some people like that. That would be me. So clinical bites, and I think a lot of you will think this is the only part, is the most interesting part of the thing, because these were the things that we did modules for each of the category in the S3 department, and these are just some examples. I'm not going to go into all of them because they'll be available to you guys later, but it was simple things like, why on earth would you sell someone a cold and flu tablet for $9 that doesn't work when they can buy it for $8.90 in the supermarket? It was about proactively and appropriately recommending pseudoephedrine. All this, none of this is hard selling of S3 products. It's about being proactive in identifying people who can benefit from them, appropriate use of them. Another example was in the bronchodilators, we found that spacers can increase pulmonary deposition by 30 to 50%. So if you're using a metered dose inhaler twice a day, there's almost no reason, unless you're going for a run, it would be inappropriate to use a spacer if you were jogging. But if it's twice a day, there's no reason why you can't use a spacer because you'll benefit from it so much. And also, aside from that, you get 75% less oropharyngeal deposition. So the amount that lands inappropriately in your throat is massively reduced. Another example is the first line, according to therapeutic guidelines, the first line treatment for eczema and dermatitis is a hypoallergenic moisturiser and soap-free wash. So when anyone picks up a topical corticosteroid, they should have directions, how much, how often and for how long, and you should be proactively giving them recommendations for your own choice of hypoallergenic wash or moisturiser, because they should be using that, because hydrating their skin will make them less vulnerable to the allergens in the first place. The impact on purchase decisions. This one is from UK things, and people have criticised me in the past because it was UK and it was 2011, but I would suggest that that's probably Australia 2014, but anyway, that's an each way bet. Price is actually only the sixth most influential factor on a purchase decision at the pharmacy shelf. It's not in the top 5. I'm sure there's someone in the audience, and during question time you can tell us, who've probably got a more relevant, a more recent Australian figure on that. The last time, when pharmacist advice got set up, price was the 17th most important thing. I'm sure it's inside the top 10 now, but I doubt it's inside the top 5. I'm not sure why we're so focused on discounting. Furthermore, in this study, nearly half of shoppers didn't consider the price at any stage of the purchase. So if they had a PayWave card, they would have walked in and bought that product for you and waived it on the way out without even thinking or acknowledging or considering the price. Again, I'm not sure why Australian pharmacy is focused on price. This is a quick note from Lillian Chen, who is another one of our trial pharmacists.
The benefits of this program is that it gives you extra tips and tools about how you can engage your customer in longer conversations about themselves. Now, I think all customers will actually really enjoy that, I mean, as do the staff. So, and what we've found is just increased loyalty.
Okay, so the goal of Pain Smart Challenge was to consider how much time you've got, and the thing I love about Glenn is that he is a scientist. I didn't add the mad part in front of that. But his quantitative analysis of those things, where he can drill it down to seconds of professional interaction as being an average, and how increasing that by 50% gives you commercial benefits. I love that. I personally love that kind of data. Ways of doing that by presenting yourself as a health centre. This is, I don't think people, like all those people in the slide previous who were saying we aren't that price focused, in my experience and from surveys that I've read and seen, this seems to be the thing that people really want in community pharmacy. They want, most important and by a long shot, knowledgeable and accessible pharmacists. They want health solutions. They're not afraid of relevant add-on sales, as provided they're relevant. They love printed information, and they love being invited back for feedback. So it's not just a transaction, it becomes a loop arrangement for you and your customers. Brand respect. This is obviously sponsored by Reckitt Benckiser, but this is, again, we embraced in the Pain Smart Challenge. It wasn't about spending your allotted, if you've got 2 minutes to counsel someone on an S3 product, do you spend those 2 minutes convincing them to buy something that they didn't ask for, or do you have a holistic management of their health problem with additional add-on sales and clearer directions and building loyalty as a result? So brands drive consumers into your pharmacy in the first place. consumers associate brands with quality. So if you want your pharmacy to have a quality image, that's something to think about. Brand support delivers new products onto the market. There's a lot of them coming down the tracks, as we believe. It's disheartening from a manufacturer's point of view to put all the work into doing these things if they're not going to last. Brand support also facilitates manufacturer programs and partnerships, and I believe at the end of this you will consider that this is actually well worth it. Okay, so one of the things we set up was training. We looked into training. We reinforced the three-pronged benefit: better for the customer, better for the business, better for you. And that enhanced our buy-in from all the pharmacists, particularly the young ideological pharmacists who really felt that they were using the last 4 years that they spent at university. And we had specific rostered S3 training rather than just attach it to S2 training and never get around to it. It had to be evidence-based information for the staff to buy in. Rotating the theme to keep it fresh, so you don't tell everyone who buys a Ventolin from you the same thing for years on end, because that's going to get annoying. You've got to turn it around. Include the front of shop staff and referral, and also we did role play with pickup lines. Well, I call them pickup lines, but I think that's considered a little bit raunchy. And so I think now they're called preliminary verbal communications. So we'll call those PVCs. You heard it here first. That was things. And basically, we did this. All this was part of the actual Pain Smart Challenge. And I can't thank the trial pharmacies enough for their generosity of time and their intelligence and input into considering all these things and rolling out, because we did find that the training was thoroughly embraced by the staff. They got a kick out of it. Here's Sarah McInerney, who was another one of our trial pharmacists, and she'll be coming up right.
Basically, we developed a one-page training per category for the S3s, and that was able to be rolled out in stores. We did it over a 4-week period. Each staff member was trained, took about 10 minutes, one-on-one with the pharmacist. They then took that message into store and put it into practice. They fed back to the pharmacists, they repeated the training, and then we started assessing it. At each stage we sought feedback both from the staff member and also from the customers as well.
Yes, we wanted the front of shop staff, their buy-in was going to be to give them tools to be a part of the program, so that when someone picked up a Zavirax in the front of store, the front of shop staff would say, did you know that there's a clinically more effective product available OTC? And they'd say no. And they'd end up buying famciclovir tablets and the Zavirax anyway. So it was a no-brainer. The front of shop staff needed small sound bites that helped them segue into the conversation. And they loved that too, because they felt like they were doing, it was like a real team effort in them recruiting people for referral to the pharmacist. The clinical bites too. Normal clinical doses of opioids dampen the pain's emotional response to pain, and they can cope better with pain. So codeine there's indications for codeine, you can't forget that. Famciclovir is the first line for severe recurrent orolobial herpes simplex. Again, what we discovered at the coalface was that most people coming in and out of the shop could self-select Lysine and walk out of the shop. They had no clue that it was available OTC. And also they didn't care that it cost $20 or $25. And quite often they said, give me an extra pack for next time. It was bizarre that people had this concept that people were reluctant to be introduced to better and more clinical products. Proton pump inhibitors, another thing. They're the first line for dyspepsia, GORD, and both Helicobacter pylori and non-steroidal anti-inflammatory ulcers. Really good products. I heard that pharmacists have been taking proton pump inhibitors at conferences for years. It's about time that you let everyone else in on the action. The benefits of professional interaction, and also this is my opinion, and a whole lot of you can say, what would he know? The thing that I liked about having Glenn before me today is that every pharmacy he does correlates more and more that what we've been talking about, the benefits of the professional, of increasing your professional interaction time, even if it's by a massive 20 seconds, improved health outcomes for consumers, consumer loyalty and return sales, increased average sale, increased gross margin and personal satisfaction. So when someone comes in and their kids have got head lice, what the experience they want to have is they're not thinking, can I get out of here and only spend $10? If they go in there and you sell them something to kill the lice and a conditioner with a free nit comb in it and give them a self-care card and they spend $40 and they will walk out of there reassured that you're a community health centre and if they ever have any health problems they'll go straight back to you. And at no stage do they think, damn, I had to pull my wallet out. Here's Sarah McInerney again, and she's going to talk about changing workflow around. I think we'll just skip that one. Okay. One of the other things we did was workflow and staffing. So we changed workflow. The really good things was that the growth in the trial pharmacies over the year was linear, so that people got, we released a category module at a time. I got the trial pharmacies to pick 5 categories, and we released a category module at a time where I wrote a clinical blurb for them to get started, and they developed their own training and implementation protocol and released it on their staff. But it was really good to watch the S3 department grow linearly through the course of the year to the results that we'll get at the end. The things that we realised worked was if you rostered an S3 manager, so someone was focused on doing it, you can just pick anyone in the pharmacy just to make sure it's rostered and recurring. Design a referral from the front of store, so actually speak to both parties and make sure that they're comfortable how they best want it done, how the pharmacist prefers to be interrupted, all those types of things. Consider an S3 channel in the pharmacy, so the pharmacies who did really well were the ones who had a forward, not necessarily a forward dispensing pharmacist or a forward position pharmacist in the first place, particularly if you've got a computer out on your shop floor so that you can do project stop recordings for pseudoephedrine really efficiently, and recommend a box of tissues and a sore throat lozenges if it's appropriate at the same time. Privacy considerations need to be taken into account if you're doing more S3 counselling. Forward data entry helps before. Like I said, it's handy to have access to everyone's medication out there. And also, if you increase your professional staff mix, it helps too. The way we did that at the outset was to add an intern, and then when I could handle it, we got a second pharmacist during the day in my shop. That's a picture of Artarmon, and those, I think it was my birthday, that's what the flowers are doing there. In there's 2 sides. Heidi's talking to someone there, and on the other side there's someone. Those people are unaware that each other's there. And over behind the flowers there's another computer there. So there's 3 input stations on the shop floor. The dispensary you can see over the back there. The pharmacists aren't allowed in there. But the people who embraced and got the best results from Pain Smart Challenge had some kind of understanding of getting forward in the first place. Okay, here comes the results. Those hashtags and stars, that was just for my own reference. I won't tell you which pharmacy was me. The one shop got a 35% profit increase versus the previous year. This is $1 profit increase on their S3 over the whole S3 department. So their profitability in that area increased by 35%. Another pharmacy got a 12% increase over the previous year, 18% over the previous year, and a 23% over the previous year. It was particularly relevant for me because at a retail masterclass that I did with the Guild a few years back, I realised that out of my entire front of shop profit, 22% of it was from my skinny little S3 department, which wasn't even being merchandised. So they're really relevant. The average increase was 22%, and I think that's absolutely worth taking up the program because it's not a hard program. And like I said, I think it would be fair to say, and I think you should check up with Jonathan and Lillian who are in the audience later. They might have been kind to me, but they actually really, really enjoyed it. Here's another video from Sarah about the impact on the pharmacies.
It changes the way that the staff engage with the customers. It removes price as a conversation. It removes so many aspects that are combative in the conversation between the staff and the customers and the pharmacists, and it creates a whole new environment with which to engage in, and that is just so positive, and that atmosphere just permeates right through the pharmacy.
Okay, thank you very, very much for your time this morning. At the moment, we're working on a program which will be available from Reckitt Benckiser if you are interested in giving it a run in your pharmacy. It makes a lot of sense for me to do it or consider it at least. Speak to your Reckitt Benckiser representative now and sign up for. You can get updates to the Pain Smart Challenge if you log on and sign up for it on rbhealthhub.com.au. There's no possible way we could have done this without our trial pharmacy, Lillian and Jonathan Chen, Sarah McInerney, Nathan Lim and Anita Kershaw, and they are young and progressive and good-looking pharmacists, and I can't thank them enough, and it's been an absolute pleasure working with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick, for yet another great APP presentation. We've probably got time for one or two quick questions. If there are any, please indicate and we'll bring a microphone to you. Please just say your name and ask away.
Hi, Robert Laird from Queensland. I like what you were saying there about the price, not banging on about price and changing people from a branded product to a generic product.
Yeah.
But I find it quite difficult sometimes competing on price, obviously, with the big box discounters. And I mean, I'd love to sell that branded product, but we don't seem to get as much support financially or through advertising as some of those big discounters. So I'm just wondering whether RB or GSK or anyone like that would consider supporting the people in the audience, because I mean, if they supported us, I imagine our business would eclipse those big box discounters.
That's a very relevant question. Unfortunately, the S3 department is limited, advertising is limited to the products in Appendix H. But that's all about to change. I was at a New South Wales Poisons Advisory Committee meeting on Tuesday, and the wheels are in progress now to change that so that things will be excluded from advertising in S3, but the default position will be that they will be allowed to be advertised. So the manufacturers, Reckitt Benckiser, I know, spends a bomb on TV advertising. They're very good at that. S3 things will be changed. Having said that, pseudoephedrine and combined analgesics won't be advertised. I can tell you that there's no validation for justifying that advertising. But I get what you mean. The good thing that came out of this thing for me was that instead of the first thing you do would be saying, would you like a generic substitute? And then them saying, is it the same? You're saying yes, and are you sure it's the same? And you assuring it's the same, and that being your 30 seconds of professional interaction was that all the staff were trained to embrace it in a different way. So get to the bottom of the pain and identify whether it's acute or chronic and be more positive. We reduced that whole gatekeeper notion of S3 analgesics so that you approached them and said, this is a strong and effective and very safe painkiller if you use it for up to 3 days. So it was being about positive for it so that you encourage the customers to be open and have a conversation. And by and large, if you were positive with them at the outset, they were really receptive to discussing whether they needed a heat pack or a cold pack or a liniment or to be referred to the physio. And it worked. It worked, sticking with the brands and recommending the brands worked. And it's not about, it just means not changing. That's what it was. It was not wasting your time changing. And the shops were more profitable as a result. But I guess that depends on your demographic. We tried to pick all different sizes of pharmacies so that it would be relevant to everyone.
Thank you, Nick. Please join me, everyone, and thank our speakers, Glenn Guilfoyle and Nick Logan. And thank you to Reckitt Benckiser for their ongoing support of our industry. For more information on their products, please visit stand numbers 166 to 171 in the exhibitors hall.